Hello and welcome. Today on the F&O Show, we chose to take a small detour and address the IRCTC listing before we delve into the futures and options trade. And it's not without reason, because it does seem like it's going to be a stellar debut for IRCTC, which it seems, and at least as far as pre-open is concerned, looking at a 100% premium to its issue price of 320, and we should have the rates on your screen in just moments from now, perhaps 15 seconds, as you can see there. And of course, we're going to see whether or not that 100% premium remains. If at all, should we see, in a higher rate, and we should have the rates in, okay. So we're waiting for these rates to come in. Yes, that's exactly what's playing out right now. 105% higher from the issue price of around 320 rupees, currently at 652 per share. Safe to say, it's a bumper listing for IRCTC. But to take us through the listing as well, join us in this conversation. Of course, I have with me Neeraj Shah, and we also have Siddhartha Khemka of Motilal Oswal Securities Services, who's joining us on the show. Neeraj, what are you making of the listing?
What are you making of it, Daga? Quite stellar, right? We need IPOs to do well, and this is certainly doing well.
I don't remember the last time we saw such high gains. I mean, I can remember Avenue Supermarts, but a public sector company, never.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? But the subscription numbers are a bit of a giveaway, right? 112 times cash rich, debt free, so therefore should do well.
Absolutely.
But quite a stellar listing, really.
Yeah.
And the question that remains is that if a PSU name can do this, maybe a good quality PSU name can gather the interest from the markets as well. Maybe I can just start off the opening question with Siddhartha Khemka. Siddhartha, thanks for joining in. This was expected to do well. Are you surprised with the extent of the premium?
Yes, so that's a good listing, and especially from coming from a PSU, it's definitely a good sign for the markets that market is willing to give value to good businesses and for companies which are doing well. The expectation was about a 50 to 60% premium listing, but 100% premium listing is really surprising and is beyond even my expectation.
Okay, Siddharth, this is Agam. I actually wanted to understand buying IRCTC in context of the rest of the markets, given that, returns have not been substantial, and it just so happens that richly valued stocks are the only ones which are actually moving higher in such markets. My question really is to do with how you would rate IRCTC with respect to some of the other, very expensive stocks which are also showing some strength. Whether or not you'd want to wait a little while longer to move into this, or you don't even mind buying and picking it up at this rate.
Yeah, Agam, so there are two parts of the question. First is how do you rate the business and the growth? So in that sense, I think IRCTC is one of the finest rail companies that the government has had, and it's a good part on the government to come and get these well-run businesses on the IPO and get it listed for the public to participate. From the earlier stance of the previous governments, where they generally used to look at the loss-making companies to privatize or to get rid of some of these businesses which are not well-run. So compared to that, this is a good shift. We have seen some of the other rail companies like REITs also getting listed recently, doing well. So if you see, the core business of IRCTC is almost like monopoly in some of the segments. It's the sole authorized ticketing services, the sole authorized drinking water, and the sole authorized catering businesses. So all three are built around strong moat and gives a direct play on the growth in the railways. So that's a good part. If you see the financials, very healthy financials, good margins, good return ratios. Generally, we don't find that in a lot of PSUs where margins are pretty low, return ratios are not there, there are accumulated losses. So all those things are not there, good dividend payout, track record. So these are things I think which the market is liking. Now the second part, coming to the valuations, that is the tricky part, given that again you don't have peer comparisons. You can at best compare with some of the internet companies, although they are not similar because the underlying commodity is different. You have some of the jobs online company or the e-commerce company which recently listed, but this is a pure play either e-commerce on the rail ticket and the catering business, again a play on retail. So the growth is that something that is playing on. Another part of the valuation is the demand and supply. Just 650 odd crores of supply, and you see the demand in the IPO, almost 72,000 crores of demand. So that is definitely pulling up the valuations, at least currently.
You know, I wonder, Agam, I mean, you don't usually compare non-comparable entities, but I remember when NBCC listed, and again, forget what's happening right now, but when it listed at a small premium, then stayed for a while. But cash rich, debt free, and monopoly, exactly the same characteristics as IRCTC has. Not comparable again. I'm just saying, just the point that Siddharth made, that the quantum of demand that was there, that one doesn't know if the stock will really, I mean, may gain so much or no. But with the quantum of demand available, you're probably safe to assume that the corrections, if any, will not be that dramatic. So I think probably depend. What do you think? I think it'll depend on the individual investor's ability to hold on to a stock, even if it were to correct a little bit from these levels.
Yes, absolutely. That's certainly very important. And but again, you know, at some point in time, maybe valuations will not matter, do not matter. And even though they should ideally, but well, sometimes
for now the going is good.
Yeah.
Siddharth, I mean, Agam probably has more, but I just have one final question from my end. For somebody who's subscribed to the IPO, would you recommend taking some money off the table or stay put?
Neeraj, again, if it's a retail investors, you would have hardly got any allotment, roughly about 15,000 odd rupees of allotment. That would not mean a substantial. So yes, a 100% jump is definitely there. But looking at the current demand supply and as well as the growth in the numbers, one point which I forgot is the reinstatement of the convenience fee on online ticketing. That is likely to push the net profit growth sharply over the next 2 years. The online convenience fee was removed after demonetization and got restarted in September. So you'll get about 7 months of convenience fee for this year and for the full year next year. So these 2 years you'll see a sharp bump up in the profits. And I think one of the reason for the excitement in a lot of these investors is that the growth in profit, we could look at almost doubling of profits for the next 2.5, 3 years. So that should keep the stock in focus. So I would not recommend booking profits right now. There are a lot of investors, as we saw in the demand, willing to jump in if any correction. So we were expecting about 550 odd rupees of listing, and it is now way above 650, 660 rupees. So any correction, I think these investors will jump in and will keep the stock price moving up. So definitely a hold for now, and should not book until it moves up, even up from here.
Okay, fair enough. Siddhartha, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us and taking us through your views on the new listing. Of course, a stellar one.
Thank you.
Along with that, I'd also like to thank Niraj for joining us and taking us through the IRCTC listing, which has been very strong. It's up as much as 110, 120%. And there you have it. It's currently at 683. But from there, let's move on and shift back focus to the futures and options space. And well, let's take a look at how things are faring out there. So I'm going to start off with the futures right now. We're looking at a 3.5% increase in open interest. There is some amount of buying, and well, we've seen the Nifty move back towards the day's high. Let's talk about the Nifty banking futures. What are we looking at out there? Well, okay, so about 0.5% gain as far as the index is concerned there as well. 9.5% increase in open interest towards longs. And let's move on, and in that case address well, your volatility index, because that is something which is important. It's up as much as 3% despite the fact that indices are advancing. And this may mean that there could be some volatility in store. Of course, it's already at, well, reasonably heady levels relative to what we have been used to of late. Currently at 17.6. And again, it's going to be an important factor to watch. Let's move on and talk about options as well then. And if we can perhaps see where there is a substantial open interest distribution, it is now around the 11,400 mark, the 11,400 call. This, of course, is this week's options expiry. Moving on, if we can also take a look at the other factors that are also playing out, and we do have the options open interest change around 11,300, the 11,300 call and put, seeing a writing coming through in today's day of trade. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one. Let's move on and talk about all the stocks which will also be in focus today, especially on the back of an increase and a decrease in open interest. So we do have Tata Motors, and it's advancing actually. It's got 11% increase increase in open interest. We have RBL Bank, which is also, well, it's given up some of the intraday gains in today's day of trade, but there's accumulation all the same. But there is some selling pressure coming through. IGL, which remains a very strong counter. NMDC is also up and about, it's gaining today. And we also have Volta, so not doing too much, but well, there is some amount of increase over. Let's move on and talk about those stocks which are seeing unwinding. Not too much there either. REC, less than 1%, so you can't like really about that one. But let's move on and get in our experts for today. But before that, I also want to take you through all the stocks that we will be addressing. And of course, I've already mentioned Tata Motors. So Tata Motors will be in focus. It's one of the top Nifty gainers. RBL Bank, you know, it did snap its 2-day losing streak, but the thing is that while it did start off the day with gains, once again is looking at some amount of selling pressure coming through. And of course, Infosys is the other one. There is some amount of disappointment as far as its guidance is concerned. Of course, its guidance has been maintained, but perhaps the street was expecting, well, the upper end of the guidance to be revised as well. So we'll be talking about that. There is a bit of pressure in Infosys as well. And on that note, it's time to get in our experts. But before that, here's a reminder. If you have any queries regarding futures and options markets, you can call us on 022-454-04141, or of course, write to us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube with the AskBQ hashtag. Today, we have with us Navneet Daga of Securities and Abhijit Phatak of Definedge Solutions joining us on the show. Good morning to both of you, and thanks for taking the time out. Abhijit, I start with you. Where do we go from here? Your view on the indices, consolidation on the cards?
Yeah, good morning, Agam. I feel Nifty is range bound between 11,200, 250 to 11,400. And unless there is a breakout from either side, it's not, I mean, it will be risky to take a directional call. But it remains a buy on dip. So where the stop loss is quite good. Right now, it's a bit risky to buy Nifty at this stage. But for the timing, one can go short in an 11,300 monthly straddle, which is at around 340. And it will protect between, I mean, once the range is broken out, I expect Nifty to go towards 11,550. But right now, the stop loss is very far up, so it's better to buy on dip rather than now.
Okay, so that's a fairly straightforward view as far as the Nifty is concerned. It's a buy on dip, but Abhijit remains positive. That's the bullish bias coming through. But Navneet, good morning to you as well. What's your view here? How would you play these markets right now?
Well, Agam, good morning. Look, to my understanding, there is no absolute amount of major bias out there. We all know that basically we are stuck in the band of 11,100 in the lower side and 11,400. But we are seeing this wild swings almost on a daily basis, led by the kind of volatility carnage that we are seeing on the Bank Nifty. But however, since most of the global markets, we are seeing that after this US-China development, we are seeing some kind of a walls collapse across the globe. But in our markets, we are seeing the wall inching up, which is giving me not very comfortable figure. It's basically I believe that we might give up some amount of gains that we have made in today's sessions. And on the upper side, until unless 11,400 is taken out, it's looking likely that a top heavy market to me. So I'll be basically looking to sell on the rise towards the 11,400 mark until unless that has been taken out. So the overall theme setup suggests to me that basically the broader range of trading is likely to continue with mild negative bias on the lower side.
Okay, so Navneet also has a short strangle on the Bank Nifty column. Before I go to him on this, let me very quickly explain what it is. It's a short strangle is when one sells an out of the money call and an out of the money put in anticipation of, well, perhaps a decrease in volatility and perhaps, well, contraction in option premiums. And that is when the strategy becomes profitable. Navneet, can you take us through why you're going short strangle on the Bank Nifty, and of course the options are you're availing?
Well, look, if you look out on the weekly options for the current month series, on the weekly side, if you're looking at almost we are trading at almost 40 to 42 odd IVs or that implied walls at the money options and OTM options on Bank Nifty. It's quite expensive one, but however we believe that basically that the broader trading range of 27,500 to 29,000 on the upper side, That 1500 points band has been not been broken out in the last 10 days or so. It's until unless we got something, any major development coming through, we don't see that the band has been taken out that easily. So however, we believe that 1500 points band is a good comfortable trading band for the next 3 to 4 days. So I believe one can still comfortably sell 27,500 puts on the lower side for this weekly expiry, that is 17th of October. And simultaneously sell an upper strike call option to make it delta neutral, sell 29,000 call options. The combined premium that we're getting it in the inflow of somewhere in the range of 335 to 340 at this point of time. And one can keep a stop loss at somewhere near to 500 points on a total spread, and I believe that the spread can narrow down if we happen to trade between this band. The spread can narrow down to as low as somewhere near to 100 points. That's where one should look to book profit in the strategy.
Okay, well, on that note, let's move on and talk about stocks then. Abhijit, I come back to you on stocks that are looking interesting to you.
Yeah, I have two longs. One is Tata Motors, which actually has gone up quite a bit, but it is a buy on dip with a stop loss below 120. And I expect 133, 135 in Tata Motors in the coming days. Another stock, in fact, a lot of metals are looking good. NMDC is a buy for me with a stop loss below 97. And I expect NMDC go to about 105 and then 110.
So Tata Motors is one of the top gainers on the Nifty, and it is something that we want to discuss in the show as well later on. And NMDC has formed some interesting volume patterns over the past few days as well. But that said, Navneet, what about you? The stocks that you are betting on today towards the long or the short side?
Look, I got a combination of one long and one short. Basically, metals are also looking good to us, largely with the kind of a global development that we have seen and the kind of a chart formation that we have seen on some of the metal stocks. Tata Steel seems to be suggesting that some kind of a bottom formation has already happened in the range of 325 to 320. It has reverted number of times from that level, and kind of a double bottom formation also been visible. So to my understanding, any dips towards 340, 345 is a good entry point. But however, the stock has moved currently, I'll wait for an entry point towards 345 and play for a target upside of somewhere near to 365 and place a stop loss at 335 on Tata Steel October futures. The second stock would be on my radar would be on short side, which is pharma. Pharma basically its overall chart setup suggests that the pharma index as well as the stocks are likely to be continue its downward trajectory. And similarly, having a similar view, I am suggesting a short on Lupin futures on October side, and entry range should be in the range of 700 to 705, and stop loss on the upper side should be today's high somewhere near to 722. And I'm expecting again a retest of levels of somewhere near to 670 is possible on Lupin in the current week itself.
Okay, well, on that note, I'm going to very quickly start addressing some of the stocks that we want to discuss, because I can see that there are a whole host of queries coming through. So before I start taking queries, I want to address what's going on with a handful of stocks. So I'm going to start with Infosys. Of course, there is a bit of disappointment that the upper end of the guidance was not revised upwards by many broking houses out there. Its guidance currently stays at around 10% on the higher end. It's been there's been an upward revision on the lower end from 8.5% to 9%. But there is fresh selling currently as far as Infosys is concerned. There was some amount of strength last Friday, but that has been sold into right now. Abhijit, what levels would you watch as far as Infosys is concerned? Would you buy, would you sell, or would you avoid a trade here?
Infosys right now at this stage there is no trade, but it is a sell on rise for me with a stop loss above 810 or on a close above below 770. And if it closes below 770, I'm expecting 740, 730 on Infosys.
Okay.
It is definitely.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Abhijit's already given his view on Tata Motors, which is why I'm going to take up Tata Motors with Navneet as well. Navneet, how are you reading into this particular up move in today's day of trade? What is your view here?
Well, to my understanding, it's looking likely that kind of a probable short covering move is what is taking place. If I look out the options chains across, if you look at the OTM in the money options on the call side, they are seeing unwinding, and the traders are shifting to the upper strike, and simultaneously on the put side also there is visible that the put writers are coming at a higher strike somewhere near to 120 odd zone. So to my understanding, the risk reward will still be favorable to be on the long side. Somewhere, if someone can have a positional view, one should place a stop loss at below 120 odd zone and still look to be on the long side. To my understanding, the chart structure, the way it is forming up, it's a chances that it can hit towards somewhere near to 130 to 138 levels on the upper side. So one can still be on the long side on this stock with a positional stop loss somewhere in the range of 121.
Okay, and let's also quickly address RBL Bank because it is it's given up its intraday gains today. It seemed like it was a strong opening, but it seems that at this point it's been sold into, that strong opening has been sold into, and it's only marginally in the green right now. In fact, it actually did move into the red at some point in time. There is also a little bit of an increase in volumes, and of course we all know that through the course of the year it's fallen from levels of 700 per share to currently at 267, 268 rupees per share. So it's been a tough one to trade, at least on the long side as far as RBL is concerned. Abhijit, your view on this one? Firstly, would you initiate fresh shorts because we've already seen a lot of weakness come through, and levels that you want to keep an eye on?
Yeah, RBL Bank is definitely a weak stock to me, and it is right now it is in a no trade zone, but it is a short on rise, and I expect it to go. If it breaks 250, I am expecting 225 on RBL Bank. But as I said, the risk reward is not good right now. So a short on rise towards 280, 285 with a stop loss about 300 for a target of 225.
Okay, all right, and thereon I move on to queries. We have the first query, which comes from Shefali Singhal. She says she's holding 2 lots of the 11,450 call. Should I hold or exit? Okay, so I'm not certain if this is the October's this week's one. It's likely that this is this week's one, and well, paid a premium of 37, currently at 39.3. So sitting on a little bit of a profit right now. Navneet, your view? Would you ask the viewer to move out and book profits or hold on? Is there a possibility of a further up move in the near term?
Well, I'll wait for today's second half kind of a movement. If we happen to sustain about 11,350 or there's a chances that we probably make a dash towards 11,400. That's where one can look to exit that strategy. Unless we give a closing basis, 11,400 has been taken out. To my understanding, we'll continue to face upside some kind of a supply zone. And overall setup doesn't suggest me that we are moving above that level in a hurry. So to my understanding, I'll wait for a closing. If it's happened to close below 11,300, one should immediately exit it, and because it's a weekly option, time value will kick in, as well as the Vega will also kick in. And simultaneously, if we happen to close above 11,350 today, there's a chances that we might see a mild up move and towards 11,400 again be challenged, and that's where one should look to exit it.
I think that can simplify Venkat Sai's question on a similar option. But Venkat Sai has bought the 11,300 call for the October 17 expiry, and again his question is hold or exit. So Abhijit, I'll take this one up with you. Your view on the 11,300 call option?
Yeah, like I said, it is right now it is range bound, but he can hold it with a stop loss below 75, and if it goes towards 120, he can book it. The stop loss should be below 75.
Okay, there you have it. That's a fairly simple and straightforward solution. You keep a stop loss of 75, and well, you can book a profit around 120, Venkat. Moving on, another very interesting stock right now is Indiabulls Housing Finance. We have Santosh Shinde, who says that is it worth going short on Indiabulls Housing Finance, or is there a possibility of some short covering? And also the levels that one may need to keep an eye on at this point. Navneet, I'll take this up with you. Your view on Indiabulls Housing Finance?
Well, to my understanding, this would be it's kind of an movement that we are seeing almost a 10% kind of a move almost on a daily basis. The stock is trading with almost IVs of implied vol somewhere near to 200 at the money options. So it gives you feelers that basically that the two-way movement is likely to continue. The naked shorts I will be avoiding at this point of time. To my understanding, the overall setup suggests that it's not moving up in a hurry, but there's a chances that one should use kind of a bear spreads in this kind of stock, whereby buying an at the money options and selling an OTM puts would be a good strategy looking at the kind of implied vols that we're trading rather than going on naked shorts. So to my understanding, I'm buying at 2,200 put options and simultaneously selling at somewhere near to 160 put options would be a good strategy. Currently happening in the range of somewhere near to 16 to 17 points. That can be employed in the stock rather than going naked shorts.
Okay, from there on, we move on and take a query from Amol Vag. His question is on Reliance, the 1360 call, Reliance Industries, and he's paid a premium of 32. His question is, should I hold or book the small profit that he is making? Let's look at the 1360 call. Okay, so he's bought it at 32. It's currently at 38.5. What should he do? Abhijit, what's your recommendation to Amol? Book profits or hold on to that call?
Reliance is a bullish stock, no doubt, but the premium is quite high for the 1360 strike price. And he can hold it with a stop loss below 30 and maybe near 42, 45, you can book the call.
Okay, and I believe I've missed out on Aditya Venkat's question on UPL, earlier known as United Phosphorus. Let's pull that up. Let's take a look at what it's doing. It's down around 1.6%. If you can also have the last 3-month chart to take a look at how the stock has been trending, because if I'm not mistaken, it has seen its seen a share of ups and downs. So in the last 3 months, it's moved below the mark of 500 and eventually gaining gradually, currently at 581. Navneet, your reading on the stock and also a possibility of some levels that you could provide our viewer.
Look, to my understanding, it's looking like the stock is again getting into that mojo of being in a continuous uptrend. If you look at the past history of it, it has seen the sharp correction and then a gradual up move, and then it goes into a consolidation mode. Something similar patterns have been visible in the current trend as well. It's looking likely that now the dips are likely to be bought into the stock somewhere in the range of 560 to 565 is a good entry point. Today's lows of somewhere near to 569 was tested and again rebounded from that lows. So to my understanding, if that lows somewhere near to 565 is again being retested, I'll be in the buying zone on the stock. I'll not overall structurally, it doesn't look to me that the top has been created. It's looking likely that somewhere again the retested of somewhere near to 620 is also possible. So I'll be looking for any dips towards somewhere in the range of 565 to be on the buy side on the stock.
Okay, and perhaps time to take a final question. We also have one from Shubham. I'm sorry. Well, Shubham, actually, we've already addressed RBL Bank, and I'll get you a question, get you an answer on that one. But Santosh Sinde also has a question on Yes Bank. He says that is it possible that Yes Bank has made a base around 40? Well, it's currently trending below that mark, and is it worth buying the November 45 call option at these levels? That's the question he is asking. Well, a 10% bounce back or perhaps a 10% up move in the next even 2 or 3 sessions cannot be ruled out because Yes Bank has just been that kind of a stock. But Abhijit, your view on Yes Bank's November 45 call option, would you recommend the viewer to, look into it?
I don't know. I don't know how liquid it will be, the November call. But if he is getting it, I mean, if there is a good liquidity, fine. With the stop loss below 37, he can try it. But it's not something which I would like to do at all because Yes Bank is one of the weak stocks. It has a resistance near 46, 47. But who knows? If it does not break 37 and goes back towards 45, 46 sometime in November, he might get a good profit in this. So with a stop loss of 37, he can buy it.
Okay, right. I think of a final question now from Shubham Alai. His question is, he already has the RBL Bank 320 call at 10. What should be done? Well, it's going to be tough for RBL Bank to go. And, Abhijit has already suggested that he would avoid a trade here. But since Shubham already has a position here, Navneet, I'm going to take your view on RBL Bank. What would the viewer do? I reckon that the viewer is going to be making a loss, and now 320 seems a bit distant. Your view here?
Well, my view would be straightforward. Look to exit in this strike. Doesn't look likely that the stock has got the merits to bounce back much higher from about 300 levels and the kind of walls that it has been trading. So there's a chances that we might see a kind of if the stock stabilizes in that range of 570 to 550, we might see a walls correction as well. So to my understanding, you should look to exit this stock at this strike immediately. Doesn't look like that the stock is going above the 300 zone in the current series.
Okay, guys, there you have it. And well, we've reached the end of the show, so I'm going to take a moment to thank both my experts, Abhijit and Navneet, for joining us and taking us through their views on the markets and solving a whole host of our viewer queries. But don't forget, for more updates on the F&O space, you can check our website, BloombergQuint.com. Specifically, the futures and options pages will be helpful for you in your trading. And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of the F&O Show. But for more news and updates, stay tuned to BloombergQuint.